Biker finds little black girl forgotten in abandoned house. One detail made him call 911 in tears. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The rain fell in sheets across Memphis that Sunday evening, the kind of downpour that made Jack's Gunnar Henderson's joints ache. At 58, with 30 years riding a Harley, he'd earned the right to complain about the weather. But today, as he idled his rumbling motorcycle alongside the curb, something more than the rain troubled him. "Clubhouse, this is Gunnar at the Beale Street extension. Checking the old property now." The house stood silent among its neighbors, windows dark and yard overgrown. Just another abandoned property, victim to the economy. Jax had seen hundreds like it over the years. "Probably just squatters looking for shelter," he muttered, killing the engine and clicking on his heavy-duty flashlight. The front door hung partially open, swollen from rain. Jax noted the broken lock, but also something peculiar. No footprints in the dust except for a single neat path. Someone had been here recently, walking with purpose. "Hello? Anyone home?" he called, his gruff voice echoing through empty rooms. The downstairs showed typical abandonment. Discarded furniture, forgotten mail, the sad remnants of a hasty departure. But as Jax climbed the stairs, his heavy boots thudding, he noticed something strange. While most of the house was coated in dust, the staircase handrail was clean as if grabbed regularly. On the second floor, Jax methodically checked each room. Empty bathroom. Empty bedroom. Empty bedroom again. Then he reached the last door. Closed, unlike the others, with a heavy bookshelf pushed against it from the outside. A chill ran down his spine that had nothing to do with the rain. "Why would someone barricade a door in an empty house?" he whispered. With a grunt of effort, Jax shoved the heavy bookshelf aside. The door was locked, but a firm kick from his boot broke the aging mechanism. The hinges creaked as the door swung open, revealing darkness. His flashlight beam cut through the gloom, illuminating something that stopped his heart. A small bed with a tiny figure curled beneath a blanket. Surrounding the bed were plates of untouched food in various stages of decay, alongside pristine, brand-new toys still in their packaging, as if time had frozen. "Hey there," Jax called softly, approaching slowly so as not to scare her. The blanket moved slightly. A child, a little black girl no more than 7 with braided hair, lay there, her eyes open but unfocused, her frame painfully thin. She didn't cry out or speak, just watched him with a hollow gaze that had seen too much. Jax knelt beside the bed, his large, tattooed hands trembling as he reached for his phone. 911, he said, his voice breaking. "I need an ambulance at 1423 Beale. Priority 1, I found a child. She's alive." As sirens wailed in the distance, Jax noticed a drawing partially hidden beneath the bed. Stick figures of a family with one small figure separated from the others by what looked like a cage. The girl's tiny, dark hand suddenly moved, weakly gripping his gloved finger. In that moment, as rain pounded against the window and the wail of approaching ambulances grew louder, Jax Henderson made a silent promise to this forgotten child. "You're safe now, little bit," he whispered, tears mingling with raindrops on his weathered, bearded face. "I'm not going anywhere." The fluorescent lights of Methodist Hospital cast harsh shadows across Jax's face as he sat in the waiting room, his leather vest resting on his knee. 3 hours had passed since the ambulance had rushed the little girl through those emergency doors. 3 hours of questions without answers. "Mr. Henderson?" A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. "I'm Dr. Patel. We've stabilized her." Jax stood quickly, his boots scraping the floor. "How is she?" "Malnourished and dehydrated, but recovering. Remarkably, there are signs someone was trying to care for her. She has prescription medications in her system. It's unusual." "Can I see her?" Dr. Patel hesitated, eyeing Jax's biker attire. She's sedated now. Child Services has been notified. Please, Jax interrupted, his voice rough. I found her. I just need to know she's okay. Something in his voice must have resonated with the doctor, who nodded and led him down the corridor. In the small room, surrounded by machines and tubes, the little girl looked even smaller than before. Her dark braids had been neatened, her thin arms connected to IV lines. We don't even know her name, Jax whispered. The social worker will be here in the morning, Dr. Patel said, placing a comforting hand on Jax's leather-clad shoulder. You should go home, get some rest. But Jax couldn't leave. Something about this child, this case, had lodged in his heart. As Dr. Patel left, Jax gently placed the stuffed bear he'd purchased from the gift shop beside her pillow. Gunner, what are you still doing here? Jax turned to see Detective Sofia Martinez in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Just making sure she's settled, he replied. This isn't like you, Martinez observed. Getting personally involved. You didn't see how she was found. Sofia Martinez stepped closer to the bed. The house belongs to a family named Cooper. Fell behind on payments after the father lost his job. Bank foreclosed 6 weeks ago. And nobody noticed a child was still inside? Jax's voice rose with indignation. That's what's strange, Martinez said, lowering her voice. According to neighbors, the family had 2 boys. No one mentioned a girl. The revelation hung heavy in the air between them. I'm heading back to the house, Martinez continued. The rain stopped. Better light now. I'll come with you. No, she said firmly. You're too close already. Stay here if you want, but this is police business now. After she left, Jax settled into the chair beside the bed. Sleep eluded him as questions swirled in his mind. Who was this child? Why had she been hidden away? And why did he feel so drawn to protect her? Near dawn, a small sound woke him. The girl's eyes were open, watching him with that same hollow gaze. Hey, Jax said softly. You're safe now. I'm Jax. Some people call me Gunner. She didn't respond, but her hand moved slightly toward the stuffed bear. Jax placed it within her reach. His phone buzzed, a message from Martinez. Come outside, found something. In the hospital parking lot, Martinez stood next to her unmarked car, expression grim. What is it? Jax asked. She opened her hand, revealing a child's bracelet with a name engraved on a small silver plate. Ellie, Jax read aloud. That's not all, Martinez said, opening a folder. We found a hidden camera in her room. Someone wasn't just keeping her there, Jax. Someone was watching her. A chill ran down Jax's spine as he looked back at the hospital windows, wondering who else might be watching Ellie right now. Jax stared at the hidden camera in Martinez's evidence bag, a small device disguised as a smoke detector. The discovery transformed everything he thought he knew about Ellie's situation. We need to secure her room, Jax said, glancing back at the hospital. If someone was monitoring her before... Already handled, Martinez assured him. Hospital security is on alert, and I've stationed a uniform outside her door. Jax rubbed his tired eyes. What kind of person watches a child suffer like that? That's the thing, Martinez said, lowering her voice. The cameras weren't just watching her. They were positioned to monitor the doors and windows, too, like someone was protecting her. Before Jax could respond, his phone rang. It was Clay, his club president, demanding his immediate return to the clubhouse. The call was brief but clear. Jax was being told to back off. You're getting too deep, Gunner, Clay said when Jax arrived at the garage. The president was a good man, but protective of the club. Child Services is taking over. The cops will handle the criminal investigation. Clay, with all due respect, Jax protested. I made a connection with her. She trusts me. That's exactly the problem, Clay replied. You're looking to retire from the road soon. Don't complicate things now. Jax left the clubhouse, frustration building inside him. Instead of going home, he rode his Harley back to the hospital. He wasn't on the case officially. He never was. But something about Ellie's situation wouldn't let him walk away. When he arrived, he found Sarah Chen, a pediatric nurse he'd met yesterday, exiting Ellie's room with a worried expression. "Mr. Henderson," she greeted him. "I'm glad you're here. We're having trouble with her treatment." "What's wrong?" "She needs a blood draw for medication adjustments, but she panics whenever medical staff approach her," Sarah explained. "She hasn't spoken a word, and she's refusing food unless left completely alone in the room." Jax peeked through the door window. Ellie sat rigidly in her bed, back pressed against the headboard, dark eyes fixed on the untouched food tray. "May I try something?" he asked. Inside the room, Jax approached slowly, pulling up a chair several feet from Ellie's bed. Not too close. "Hi, Ellie," he said softly. "Remember me? The biker from yesterday?" No response, but her eyes flickered toward him briefly. "You know," Jax continued conversationally, "my daughter used to hate hospitals too. All the beeping machines and people poking at you." He picked up an apple from her tray and began to peel it with his pocket knife, the red skin curling away in one long spiral. She had a trick, though. She would close her eyes and imagine she was somewhere else, somewhere nice. As he spoke, he sliced the peeled apple into small pieces. "Where would you go if you could go anywhere right now?" Ellie remained silent, but her rigid posture softened slightly. "Me? I'd go riding. There's a highway out west, so quiet you can hear the wind singing through the canyons." Jax placed the apple slices on a napkin and set them on the edge of her bed, not pushing them toward her. "Sometimes just pretending you're somewhere else makes the hard things easier." To his surprise, Ellie reached for an apple slice and took a tiny bite. Outside the room, Sarah watched in amazement. "How did you do that?" Jax shrugged. "Just something I learned with my daughter." "She had—" He paused, the memory still painful after all these years. "Special medical needs, too." When the phlebotomist arrived for the blood draw, Jax stayed, telling Ellie stories about imaginary motorcycle trips while she closed her eyes tight. One small tear escaped, but she remained still, allowing the procedure. Afterward, Sarah pulled Jax aside. "The social worker is coming tomorrow morning. I thought you should know." "Thank you," Jax said, then hesitated. "Sarah, did you notice anything unusual in her medical assessment?" "Like what?" "Like signs of specialized care. The detective found prescription medications at the house." Sarah's expression changed. "Actually, yes, she has a rare autoimmune condition. The treatment protocol is complex, but whoever was caring for her before knew what they were doing. Her medication levels are precisely maintained." "That doesn't sound like neglect," Jax observed. "No," Sarah agreed. "It sounds like someone who cared a great deal, but something went very wrong." As Jax left the hospital that evening, he spotted a car parked across the street, a figure watching the hospital entrance. When Jax stepped toward it, the car pulled away quickly, disappearing into traffic. Back in his apartment, Jax couldn't sleep. He spread out the few personal items they'd found with Ellie, the bracelet, the drawing of the separated family, and a torn photograph showing what appeared to be a cabin in the woods. Half the photo was missing, deliberately cut away. "What happened to you, Ellie?" he whispered to the empty room. "And who's still looking for you?" The social worker, Mrs. Grayson, was everything Jax expected. Efficient, overworked, and bound by protocols that rarely bent for individual circumstances. He watched from the hallway as she interviewed Ellie, noting how the child retreated further into silence with each question. "Mr. Henderson," Mrs. Grayson greeted him afterward, flipping through her clipboard. I understand you've been visiting regularly despite having no relation. I've established a connection with her, Jax replied evenly. Mrs. Grayson adjusted her glasses. While that's commendable, attachment can complicate transitions. Ellie will be transferred to Brightview Children's Center tomorrow, pending family location. Jax's stomach tightened. Brightview? That facility has been cited for staffing errors 3 times this year. It's the only placement available for her special medical needs, Mrs. Grayson replied, unless you're suggesting an alternative. The challenge in her voice was clear. Jax had no authority here, no legal standing to intervene. May I at least prepare her for the move? He asked. Mrs. Grayson hesitated, then nodded. 10 minutes. Inside, Ellie sat cross-legged on her bed, methodically arranging and rearranging the apple slices on her tray without eating them. Hey there, little bit, Jax said gently, sitting in his usual chair. That's a nice pattern you're making. Ellie's hand stilled, but she didn't look up. I wanted to tell you about tomorrow, he continued. You'll be going to a new place called Brightview. They have other children there and doctors who can help you feel better. At the word Brightview, Ellie's head snapped up, her eyes suddenly alert and fearful. It's going to be okay, Jax assured her, though doubt crept into his voice. They'll take good care of you until... No dark. The words were so quiet, Jax almost missed them. What did you say? Ellie's fingers clutched the bedsheet. No dark room, please. Her first complete sentence spoken with such desperate clarity that Jax felt his heart constrict. Ellie, did someone keep you in a dark room? Instead of answering, she reached for her drawing from beneath her pillow. The stick figure family with one separated by what he'd thought was a cage. Looking closer now, he realized it wasn't a cage at all. It was a room with a window, a small figure inside, while shadows loomed outside. Who are these people? Jax asked, pointing to the shadows. Ellie shook her head vehemently, refusing to speak again, but her message was clear. Brightview terrified her. Outside, Jax found Nurse Sarah reviewing charts. Ellie spoke, he told her urgently. She's afraid of dark rooms and this Brightview transfer. Sarah glanced around before lowering her voice. Listen, I shouldn't say this, but Brightview has a reputation. They separate difficult cases in isolation rooms when they're short-staffed. We need to delay this transfer, Jax insisted. On what grounds? You're not family, and officially you're just a bystander. Before Jax could respond, his phone rang. Detective Martinez. Jax, I found something. Meet me at the station in 20. At the precinct, Martinez led him to her desk where surveillance footage played on her computer, a corner store camera 3 blocks from the Cooper house. She explained. Watch. The grainy footage showed a woman in a hooded jacket standing across from the abandoned house, watching it intently. Her face was mostly hidden, but her posture conveyed vigilance, not threat. This is from 2 days before you found Ellie, Martinez said. She stands there for nearly an hour, then leaves when a patrol car drives by. She was checking on the house, Jax realized. Exactly. And look at this. Martinez switched to another clip showing the same woman leaving a package on the doorstep after dark. Food deliveries. Someone was trying to care for Ellie remotely. The mother possibly, but why leave your child and just watch from afar? Unless she was hiding her, Jax finished. But from what? Martinez pulled out a file. I looked into the Cooper family. Thomas Cooper, the father, lost his job at MedCorp Pharmaceuticals last year. Medical bills piled up, all for specialized treatments not covered by insurance for Ellie's condition, Jax said. Here's where it gets interesting, Martinez continued. After they lost the house, Thomas Cooper applied for emergency housing assistance 3 times, Each application lists 4 family members, 2 adults, 2 children. Both children are boys. Ellie doesn't officially exist, Jax whispered, the implications dawning on him. No birth certificate, no social security number, no school records, Martinez confirmed. It's like she was deliberately kept off the grid. As Jax drove his bike home that evening, the pieces refused to align. A family in crisis, a hidden child with expensive medical needs, a mother watching from shadows, and tomorrow Ellie would be transferred to a facility she clearly feared. In his apartment, Jax stared at the photo of his daughter on the mantel, smiling despite the hospital bracelet on her thin wrist. He remembered the helplessness of watching her suffer, of fighting insurance companies and medical bureaucracy while her time slipped away. "Not again," he whispered to the empty room. "Not if I can help it." He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. Teresa Garcia, family court attorney and old friend of the club. "Teresa, it's Gunnar. I need your help with something unusual." Teresa Garcia hadn't changed much in the 5 years since Jax had last seen her. Still sharp-eyed and direct, with reading glasses perpetually perched on top of her silver-streaked hair. "So, let me get this straight," she said, stirring her coffee in the hospital cafeteria. "You want to challenge an official child services placement for a girl you found 3 days ago with no legal standing whatsoever?" Jax nodded. "That's about it." Teresa's expression softened. "Jax, I know that look. It's the same one you had during Maya's treatments. You're attaching yourself to this child because of what happened with your daughter." "This isn't about Maya," Jax insisted, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. "Ellie is terrified of being transferred to Bright View. She spoke for the first time specifically to tell me that." "Even if I believed you could separate your past from this situation," Teresa said carefully, "what exactly are you proposing? Foster care applications take weeks, sometimes months. What about emergency temporary guardianship, just until they locate her family or find a better placement?" Teresa nearly choked on her coffee. "You? Jax, you live alone. You ride a Harley. You have no experience raising a child with special medical needs. Recently, anyway." The irony of her statement hung between them. They both knew that wasn't true either. Before Jax could respond, Nurse Sarah rushed into the cafeteria, her face flushed with excitement. "Mr. Henderson, come quickly. Ellie's relatives are here." Jax and Teresa exchanged surprised glances before following Sarah to the pediatric floor. Outside Ellie's room stood Mrs. Grayson, speaking with an older couple who looked travel-worn and anxious. "These are the Whitmans," Mrs. Grayson explained. "Margaret is Thomas Cooper's aunt. They drove from Virginia as soon as they were notified." Margaret Whitman, a slight woman in her 60s, stepped forward. "We had no idea any of this was happening. We lost touch with Thomas after his mother and my sister passed away. To think that poor child was left alone." Her voice cracked with emotion. "They've already signed the preliminary custody forms," Mrs. Grayson added. "Ellie will be going home with them tonight." Jax felt a conflicting rush of relief and loss. This was the best outcome for Ellie. Family who wanted her, not an impersonal facility. Yet he couldn't ignore the strange emptiness opening in his chest. May I say goodbye to her?" he asked. Mrs. Grayson nodded reluctantly. Inside the room, Ellie sat alert, watching the adults outside her door with weary eyes. When she saw Jax, something flickered across her face. Recognition, perhaps even trust. "Ellie," Jax said gently, "some people are here to take you home. They're your family, your dad's aunt and uncle. They're going to take good care of you." Ellie's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened around her stuffed bear. "I brought you something," Jax continued, pulling a small card from his vest pocket. "This has my phone number on it. If you ever need anything at all, you can call me. I promise I'll answer." As he placed the card in her small hand, Ellie suddenly reached out and touched the silver star pin on his leather cut, then looked up into his eyes with a question she couldn't or wouldn't verbalize. "I'll always be looking out for you," Jax assured her, understanding somehow. "That's what bikers do. Help people who need it, like I helped you." For the briefest moment, Ellie's hand wrapped around his gloved finger, just as it had the day he found her. Then Mrs. Grayson appeared at the door with the Whitmans. "Time to go, Ellie," she announced. "Your family is ready to take you home." Jax stepped back, watching as the Whitmans approached Ellie with gentle smiles. Margaret knelt beside the bed, speaking softly. Howard Whitman hung back, his expression difficult to read. "Ready to go, sweetheart?" Margaret asked, holding out her hand. Ellie looked from the Whitmans to Jax, then slowly reached for her drawing, the one with the stick figures, and handed it to Jax. A parting gift. "Thank you," Jax said, his voice thick with emotion. "Be good, Ellie. Be safe." In the hallway, Teresa placed a comforting hand on Jax's shoulder as they watched the Whitmans lead Ellie toward the elevator, her few possessions packed in a hospital-provided bag. "You did the right thing," Teresa assured him. "I know," Jax replied, though the heaviness in his chest disagreed. Later that evening, as Jax sat alone in his apartment staring at Ellie's drawing, his phone rang. "Detective Martinez," her voice tense. "Jax, the Whitmans never made it to their hotel. They checked out 30 minutes after leaving the hospital, and their vehicle was spotted heading west on the interstate." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying something feels wrong. I ran a deeper background check. Howard Whitman worked for MedCorp Pharmaceuticals, the same company that fired Thomas Cooper. And I found something else. The Whitmans' identification. The address they listed doesn't exist." Jax's blood ran cold as he stared at the drawing in his hand, a child hidden while shadows loomed outside. "They're not taking her to Virginia," he realized. "They're running." "We've already alerted state police," Martinez said. "But Jax, Ellie left something at the hospital. A nurse found it tucked under her mattress." "What?" "An envelope addressed to you. Inside was just a bracelet identical to the one she was wearing, but with a different name engraved on it." "What name?" Jax asked, already reaching for his motorcycle keys. "Maya," Martinez replied. "Your daughter's name." The bracelet lay in Jax's palm, its silver surface catching the precinct's fluorescent lights. Maya's name, his daughter's name, engraved on the delicate plate, identical to Ellie's in every way except for those 4 letters. "This can't be coincidence," Jax said, his voice barely above a whisper. Martinez paced behind her desk, face grim. The Whitmans' rental car was found abandoned at a bus station in Little Rock. CCTV shows them boarding a westbound bus with Ellie. "She went willingly?" Jax asked. "Appears so," Martinez confirmed, sliding surveillance photos across the desk. "No signs of distress. The images showed Ellie holding Margaret Whitman's hand, her expression unreadable as they climbed aboard the bus, her stuffed bear clutched tightly against her chest." "How did these people even know about Ellie?" Martinez demanded rhetorically. "The press release didn't include her name or photo." "Someone inside the system," Jax suggested. "Hospital staff, social services, or the people who were watching her." "Through that camera," Martinez finished. "The same people who know about Maya somehow." Martinez's expression softened slightly. "Jax, I understand this feels personal now, but it is personal. They used my daughter's name to get my attention. They wanted me to find that envelope," Jax insisted, closing his fingers around Maya's bracelet. "Or to distract you," Martinez countered. "Keep you focused on the connection to Maya while they disappeared with Ellie." Jax stood abruptly. "I need to go back to the Cooper house. There's something we missed." "Jax, you can't officially investigating this," Martinez reminded him. "Then I'm taking a ride," Jax replied, already heading for the door. Consider me a concerned citizen following up on a hunch." Outside, rain had returned to the city, turning the evening streets into mirrors of neon and shadow. Jax rode to the abandoned house where everything began. Police tape still fluttered around its perimeter. Using his flashlight, he made his way up the familiar stairs to Ellie's room. In daylight, investigators had combed through every inch of the space. But sometimes darkness revealed what light concealed. Jack switched off his flashlight and stood in the pitch-black room, waiting for his eyes to adjust. Gradually, he noticed a faint glow coming from the baseboard near the closet. Kneeling, he discovered a small nightlight plugged into a low outlet. Its dim blue light was barely visible unless the room was completely dark. "She was afraid of the dark," Jax whispered, remembering Ellie's words. No dark room. Next to the nightlight, almost invisible against the wall, was a child's handprint in faded paint. Jax placed his hand over it, feeling a father's instinct he thought had died with Maya. His phone vibrated. A text from Martinez. "Bus arrived in Fayetteville. No sign of them. Searching hotels now." As Jax stood to leave, his heavy boot knocked against something beneath the bed, a loose floorboard. Prying it up, he discovered a small metal box. Inside lay a worn journal and several flash drives labeled with dates. The journal's first page made his blood run cold. "If you're reading this, we couldn't come back for her. Please help our Ellie. They're watching us. They're always watching. Trust only the biker with the silver star." Jax touched the silver star pin on his cut. A silver star. The pieces began to align in a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Back on his bike, rain drumming on his helmet, Jax rode to a diner with Wi-Fi. He opened the most recent flash drive on his laptop. A video began to play. Thomas Cooper, looking exhausted and fearful, speaking directly to the camera. "Mr. Henderson, Gunner, if you're watching this, then our worst fears have come true. They found us, but they don't know about you. They don't know you're the safe man we've been waiting for. Please find our daughter before they do." The screen went dark, leaving Jax with more questions than answers, and the crushing weight of a trust he never asked for but couldn't ignore. The flash drives contained fragments of Thomas Cooper's desperate plan. Video journals, medical records, and scattered messages meant for someone he called the safe man. Jax watched them in sequence at Teresa's office, the attorney's expression growing more troubled with each revelation. "He knew you would find her," Teresa said, pausing the latest video. "But how? You were just checking a property." "Not by chance," Jax realized. "Look at the date he recorded this. 3 months ago. And look behind him." Teresa leaned closer to the screen, noticing the newspaper clipping pinned to the wall. Jax receiving a community service award for the club's annual toy drive. His photo, wearing his cut with the silver star pin, clearly visible. "He researched you," she whispered. "Selected you specifically." "Because of Maya," Jax added. "The medical records on these drives, Ellie's condition is almost identical to what my daughter had. Thomas Cooper worked for MedCorp Pharmaceuticals, the same company that developed the experimental treatment Maya received." "So Thomas knew about your daughter through the company's records," Teresa concluded. "But why hide Ellie? Why the elaborate plan?" Before Jax could answer, his phone rang. Martinez. "We found them," she said without preamble. "Hotel security camera in Branson caught Howard Whitman using an ATM. They're traveling under different names now, but it's definitely them." "Are they still with Ellie?" "Yes. And here's the strange part. They're heading to the Lake of the Ozarks." Jax's breath caught. The torn photograph found with Ellie. A cabin in the woods. "They're taking her home." After ending the call, Jax turned to Teresa. "I need to go to the Ozarks tonight." "Jax, think this through," Teresa cautioned. "Even with this evidence, you have no legal authority. This is a job for the FBI at this point." "And how long will that take? The system failed Ellie once already. Jax's voice softened. Teresa, you saw those medical records. Without proper treatment, Ellie's condition could deteriorate quickly. The Whitmans are taking her off-grid, away from hospitals. Teresa studied him for a long moment, then sighed. I'll make some calls. My cousin works with a family court judge in Missouri. Maybe we can get emergency intervention orders ready. Thank you, Jax said, already gathering the drives. And I need one more favor. 2 hours later, Jax sat across from his club president, Clay. The evidence spread between them. To his surprise, Nurse Sarah sat beside him, clutching Ellie's medical chart. This is highly irregular, Gunner, Clay grumbled. But necessary, Sarah insisted. As Ellie's primary care provider, I'm formally expressing concern that her custodians have removed her from medical supervision against doctor recommendations. And these flash drives clearly show Thomas Cooper's intent, Jax added. The Whitmans aren't relatives. They're former colleagues helping the family hide. Clay rubbed his temples. Even if I believe all this, Gunner, what exactly are you asking for? Leave of absence, 5 days. Personal reasons. A knowing look passed between them. Clay wasn't just Jax's president. They'd ridden together for 20 years, and if you happened to take a trip to Missouri during this personal time, purely coincidental. Clay sighed deeply. The club can't officially sanction this, you understand? If anything goes wrong, it's on you. Jax agreed. As he left the garage, Sarah hurried alongside him to his bike, handing him a medical kit. Ellie's medications and emergency supplies. Enough for 2 weeks. Thank you, Jax said, genuinely moved by her support. Mr. Henderson, Sarah said hesitantly, the Coopers chose you for a reason. Whatever's happening, Ellie trusts you. That matters more than any legal document. Under the glow of streetlights, Jax opened his saddlebag, revealing a bag already packed. Beside it lay his personal protection piece, legally carried but rarely used. Next to it was a framed photo of Maya. I'm coming, Ellie, he whispered, starting the engine. As his Harley merged onto the interstate heading west, Jax knew he was crossing a line. No longer just a biker doing a good deed. He had become something else entirely. The safe man with the silver star, exactly as Thomas Cooper intended. The Lake of the Ozarks sparkled under the autumn sun, its shoreline dotted with vacation homes and rustic cabins. Jax had ridden through the night, arriving as morning mist still clung to the water. He parked his bike at a small motel on the outskirts of town, checking in under a name that wasn't his own. A precaution that felt necessary, given the conspiracy. In his room, Jax spread a map across the bed, marking locations based on the torn photograph of the cabin. The image showed only half the structure, but distinctive blue shutters and a stone chimney made it potentially identifiable. His phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. Judge Morgan reviewing emergency custody petition. Needs more evidence of immediate danger. Call me. Jax sighed. The legal system moved at its own pace, regardless of urgency. He couldn't wait. At the local realty office, a friendly agent named Donna was happy to help a potential buyer interested in secluded properties. Blue shutters and a stone chimney, she mused, clicking through her database. That narrows it down. Most cabins here are pretty standard. After several minutes, she turned her monitor toward him. Could be the Henderson place, though they painted those shutters last year. Or maybe the old Cooper property. But that's been in foreclosure. Jax's pulse quickened. Cooper property? Shame about that one. Beautiful location, North Shore. Been vacant since the bank took it last spring. Family troubles, I heard. 20 minutes later, Jax parked his bike half a mile from the address Donna had provided. The last stretch he would cover on foot through woods that bordered the Cooper cabin. As he approached through the trees, he saw them. The blue shutters, From the photograph, now weather-worn and peeling, the cabin stood on a gentle slope above the lake, isolated from neighboring properties by thick forest. A silver sedan sat in the gravel driveway. The Whitman's rental car. Jax circled cautiously, staying within the tree line. Through binoculars, he watched Howard Whitman carrying groceries inside, while Margaret sat on the porch swing, looking out over the water. Of Ellie, there was no sign. As dusk approached, lights came on inside the cabin. Through a side window, Jax finally spotted Ellie sitting at a kitchen table, Margaret brushing her hair with gentle strokes. The scene looked so normal, so peaceful, that Jax questioned his own assumptions. What if he was wrong? What if the Whitmans truly were trying to protect her? His radio crackled softly. A secure channel Martinez had arranged, connected to the local sheriff's office where she'd sent the evidence. "Jax," came her voice through static. "We got a hit on Howard Whitman. He's not Thomas Cooper's uncle. He was head of security at MedCorp Pharmaceuticals before resigning suddenly last year." Security? Not research? Corporate security, specialized in internal investigations and problem management, according to his profile. The pieces shifted again, forming a darker pattern. Jax's eyes returned to the cabin, now seeing it differently, not as a refuge, but as a hiding place, not as a home, but as a temporary stop. As night fell, Jax moved closer, finding a spot beneath an old pine with a clear view of the cabin's rear entrance. The sound of raised voices drifted through a partially open window. "They're closing in," Howard's voice, tense and urgent. "We can't stay here past tomorrow." "She needs stability," Margaret protested. "Look what all this running has done to her already." "Better scared than captured," Howard replied grimly. "If they find her, everything Thomas exposed will be buried. You know what's at stake. And what about her? What about what Ellie needs?" The argument continued, but Jax's attention shifted to movement on the cabin's second floor. A small face appeared at a bedroom window, Ellie looking out at the night sky. For a brief moment, her eyes seemed to find his hiding place among the shadows. Then, deliberately, she placed her palm against the glass, the same gesture as the handprint in her bedroom at the abandoned house. A signal. Jax raised his hand in response, unsure if she could see him in the darkness. But somehow he knew she understood. He wasn't just coming for her. He was already there. Dawn broke over the lake with a gentle mist rising from the water. Jax, stiff from his night of surveillance, watched as Howard Whitman loaded bags into the sedan's trunk. They were preparing to move again just as he'd overheard. His phone vibrated, a message from Teresa. "Judge needs proof of connection between MedCorp and current situation. Anything on the flash drives?" Jax hadn't had time to review all the files Thomas Cooper had left behind. Retreating deeper into the woods, he opened his laptop and inserted one of the drives, searching for anything that might explain the stake Howard had mentioned. A video file labeled "For the Safe Man," final testimony began to play. Thomas Cooper's gaunt face filled the screen, his eyes haunted but determined. "Gunner, if you're watching this, officer, biker, whoever you are to the world, then you found Ellie and realized the truth. MedCorp isn't just a pharmaceutical company. It's built on exploiting children like our daughter, like your Maya." Jax's breath caught. The video continued, Thomas explaining how he discovered internal documents showing MedCorp had deliberately suppressed affordable treatments for rare childhood conditions while developing expensive alternatives accessible only to the wealthy. Ellie was born with the same condition they used to test these treatments. When I found evidence they were falsifying results and hiding side effects, I planned to expose everything. Thomas's voice broke. "They came after my family. Said they'd take Ellie for further studies if I didn't stay quiet." The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. Thomas hadn't abandoned Ellie. He'd hidden her to protect her from becoming another test subject. "We're going public with everything," Thomas continued. "But first, we needed to ensure Ellie would be safe. That's why we chose you. You lost your daughter to the same condition. You understand what's at stake. You wear the silver star. The symbol Ellie knows means safety." The video ended with coordinates, a location where Thomas had hidden the complete evidence. Jax checked the map. It was less than a mile from the cabin. As he closed his laptop, a twig snapped behind him. Jax turned to find Margaret Whitman standing there, arms crossed. "I wondered when you'd make your move, Mr. Henderson," she said quietly. Jax stood slowly, hands visible. "Mrs. Whitman." "Margaret is fine, and I'm not here to stop you." Her expression softened. "I was Thomas's research partner at MedCorp before all this happened. I helped him hide his findings when we realized what the company was doing." "Where is Thomas now?" Jax asked. "And Ellie's mother?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "In protective custody with their sons. The plan was for all of them to disappear together. But when the whistleblower case went public, MedCorp security started searching for them. Ellie was too sick to travel quickly, so Thomas made the impossible choice to hide her temporarily at the house in Memphis with monitoring systems so they could watch over her remotely." Margaret confirmed. "It was only supposed to be for 3 days, but then Thomas and Laura were discovered and had to flee immediately with the boys. And you've been running with Ellie ever since I found her," Jax concluded. "Howard worked security at MedCorp. He knows their methods. He's been keeping us one step ahead." Margaret glanced back toward the cabin. "But he's right. They're closing in. Corporate fixers, private investigators. They'll do anything to silence Thomas and recover his evidence. Including using Ellie as leverage," Jax realized. Margaret nodded. "Thomas trusted you to protect her. He knew your history, your integrity. The question is, can we?" Before Jax could answer, a child's voice called from the direction of the cabin. "Margaret, where are you?" It was Ellie standing on the back porch clutching her stuffed bear. When she spotted Jax among the trees, her eyes widened. For a breathless moment, he feared she might scream or run. Instead, she lifted her hand in a small wave and spoke a single word that changed everything. "Gunnar." "Mommy said you'd come," Ellie said. "She's been talking about you since we left the hospital," Margaret explained as they walked back to the cabin. "The safe man with the silver star." Ellie walked between them, her small, dark hand slipping tentatively into Jax's large one. The simple gesture of trust made his throat tighten with emotion. Inside, Howard Whitman paced anxiously, phone pressed to his ear. His expression darkened when he saw Jax. "What is he doing here?" he demanded, ending his call. "He found us just like Thomas said he would," Margaret replied calmly. "We need his help, Howard." "We don't need complications," Howard countered, eyeing Jax's vest with suspicion. "Every minute we stay puts Ellie at risk." "I'm not here to complicate things," Jax said, keeping his voice steady despite the tension crackling in the room. "I want the same thing you do, to keep Ellie safe." Howard's skeptical expression didn't change. "And the authorities breathing down our necks. The APB on our vehicle. Was that your idea of helping?" "I didn't know the whole story then," Jax admitted. While the adults talked, Ellie tugged Jax towards the kitchen table where she'd arranged her few possessions. The stuffed bear, her bracelet, and several drawings. One showed a biker with an oversized silver star standing between a small figure and looming shadows. "You knew I was coming," Jax said softly. Ellie nodded. "Daddy showed me your picture. Said when things got scary, you would help." The simplicity of her trust humbled him. Whatever doubts had plagued Jax dissolved in the face of this child's absolute certainty. Howard joined them, his stern expression softening slightly as he watched their interaction. "Thomas chose well," he conceded reluctantly. But good intentions won't stop what's coming. What is coming exactly? Jax asked. Howard's answer was interrupted by the sound of tires on gravel. A vehicle approaching the cabin. Margaret peered through the curtains, her face paling. Black SUV, 2 men, MedCorp security, Howard confirmed grimly. They found us. Jax's instincts kicked in immediately. Back door, now. As Howard gathered their essential belongings, Jax led Ellie and Margaret through the kitchen and out the rear entrance. They moved quickly into the tree line, following a narrow path down toward the lake where a small boathouse stood. Inside the wooden structure, a motorboat bobbed gently against the dock. Get in, Jax instructed. Stay low. As Margaret helped Ellie into the boat, Jax turned back toward the cabin, now partially visible through the trees. 2 men in dark suits were approaching the front door, their purposeful stride betraying their intent. One of them noticed the fresh footprints leading from the back door toward the lake, and pointed. They changed direction, moving with increased urgency. They've spotted our trail, Jax warned, jumping into the boat and starting the engine. Hold on. As they pulled away from the dock, Ellie looked back at the only safety she had known for the past week, her expression remarkably calm despite the danger. Where are we going? She asked. Jax steered the boat toward the center of the lake, putting distance between them and their pursuers. Somewhere safe, he promised. A place even safer than this. Ellie nodded solemnly, then surprised him with her next words. Mommy said you know about the special medicine, the one that helps kids like me and your Maya. The small motel room on the outskirts of Springfield felt like a cage to Jax. After navigating across the lake and abandoning the boat at a public dock, they'd driven for hours in his rental car, switching directions several times to ensure they weren't followed. Howard had separated from them, taking a different route to recover Thomas Cooper's hidden evidence. Now, as rain lashed against the windows, Jax watched Ellie sleeping fitfully on one of the twin beds. Margaret sat by the window, her silhouette outlined against occasional lightning flashes. Her medication is running low, Margaret said quietly. The special compound Thomas developed isn't commercially available without... She didn't finish the thought. She didn't have to. Jax's phone vibrated. Teresa calling. Bad news, she said without preamble. Judge denied our emergency petition. Without Ellie physically present in court, he wouldn't consider the evidence. What about the FBI? They're investigating MedCorp based on Thomas's whistleblower claim. But corporate cases move slowly. They're not treating Ellie's situation as a priority. Another dead end. The system that was supposed to protect children like Ellie was failing her yet again. As Jax ended the call, Ellie stirred, her face flushed with fever. She needs a hospital, Jax said, moving to her bedside. Margaret shook her head. They'll find us. Medical facilities are the first place they'll check. Then we make our stand here, Jax decided. I won't keep running while she gets sicker. As if on cue, headlights swept across the motel parking lot. A black SUV similar to the one at the cabin, moving slowly past each room. They found us, Margaret whispered. Jax moved quickly, gathering Ellie, who woke disoriented and frightened. We have to go, he told her gently. Can you be brave for me? Ellie nodded, though her eyes were glassy with fever. As Jax carried her towards the bathroom window, their only exit, his phone rang again. Clay. Gunner, where are you? The club's been contacted by MedCorp security claiming you've abducted a child across state lines. Jax's heart sank. Now he wasn't just bending rules. In the eyes of the law, he had become a kidnapper. It's not what it seems, Prez. I know that, but others won't. Come in now while I can still help you. Outside, car doors slammed as men approached their room. I can't, Jax said, making his choice. Not until she's safe. As he helped Ellie through the window into the rainy night, Jax realized he had crossed a point of no return. His freedom, his reputation, all sacrificed for a child who trusted him to be her safe man. In that moment of clarity, with everything at stake, Jax felt more certain than he had since finding Ellie in that abandoned room. Whatever came next, he would face it without regret. For the first time in 30 years, Jax Henderson was a fugitive. The irony wasn't lost on him as he drove through the rainy Missouri countryside, Ellie sleeping fitfully in the back seat, Margaret keeping watch for pursuing vehicles. "Where are we going?" Margaret asked, her voice taut with exhaustion. "Somewhere I haven't been in a long time," Jax replied, turning onto a narrow country road. The headlights illuminated a weathered sign. "Whisper Ridge Retreat, 3 Summersuins." Beyond it lay the small cabin Jax had purchased after Maya's death, a place of solitude he'd eventually abandoned when the memories became too painful. "Will they look for us there?" Margaret worried. "It's not in my name," Jax explained. "After Maya passed, I put it in a trust for my sister. She manages the property." The cabin appeared through the trees, small and dark against the stormy sky, as Jax carried Ellie inside. Memories flooded. Maya sitting on the porch swing, laughing despite her illness. While Margaret settled Ellie in the bedroom, Jax built a fire in the stone fireplace, the familiar ritual calming his racing thoughts. His phone had no signal here, both a blessing and a curse. They were isolated but also unreachable. "Her fever's rising," Margaret reported, emerging from the bedroom. "Without her medication." Jax nodded grimly. "I know someone who might help us, my sister, but I'd need to reach town to make the call." Before Margaret could respond, headlights swept across the windows, a vehicle approaching slowly up the private drive. "They couldn't have tracked us here," Margaret whispered, panic edging her voice. Jax motioned for her to stay quiet as he moved to the window, hand instinctively reaching for his waistband. Through the rain-streaked glass, he could make out a single figure approaching. Not the tactical movement of MedCorp security, but the cautious steps of someone familiar with the property. The knock, when it came, was gentle. 3 soft taps. "Jax, it's Clara. Are you in there?" Clara Henderson, Jax's sister, a pediatric nurse he hadn't spoken to in nearly 2 years. When he opened the door, Clara's expression shifted from concern to shock as she took in his haggard appearance. "I knew it," she said softly. "When I saw the news about a biker kidnapping a child, I just knew you'd come here." "How did you find us?" Jax asked, torn between relief and caution. "The security system alerted me when someone entered the cabin. I came straight here." Clara stepped inside, shaking rain from her coat. "I've been trying to reach you for days." Her eyes widened as she noticed Margaret, and then drifted towards the bedroom where Ellie lay. "Is that her? The little girl?" "It's not what they're claiming," Jax started to explain. But Clara raised her hand to stop him. "I didn't drive 3 hours in a storm because I believed what they're saying about you," she said firmly. "I came because I know my brother would never risk everything without a reason that mattered." In that moment of acceptance, something broke inside Jax, the wall he'd built after Maya's death. "She needs medical help, Clara," he admitted, "and I don't know who else to trust." Clara set down her bag and removed her coat with a new determination. "Then it's a good thing you've got a pediatric nurse for a sister," she said, moving towards the bedroom. "Now tell me everything." As dawn broke over Whisper Ridge, Ellie's fever finally broke, too. Clara had worked through the night using supplies from her bag, adapting treatment protocols based on Margaret's knowledge of Ellie's condition. Watching his sister and Margaret working together to save Ellie, Jax realized something profound. He wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Morning sunlight filtered through pine branches, casting dappled patterns across the cabin's worn floorboards. Ellie sat at the small kitchen table, color returned to her cheeks, carefully coloring a drawing while Clara prepared breakfast. Jax's phone, now with a weak signal near the cabin's western window, buzzed with a message from Detective Martinez. Cooper evidence received by FBI. MedCorp executives called to testify. Need Ellie and you in St. Louis tomorrow. Can arrange protection. Good news? Margaret asked, noticing his expression lighten. Maybe, Jax replied cautiously. Howard got the evidence to the FBI. They're moving on MedCorp. That doesn't mean Ellie's safe yet, Margaret warned. Until Thomas and Laura can reclaim custody, the system could still separate her from everyone she trusts. Clara joined them, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Then we need a plan that keeps her protected both from MedCorp and from well-meaning but harmful bureaucracy. The simple "we" in her statement warmed Jax's heart. His sister had fully committed to their cause without hesitation. I have an idea, Clara continued, but it'll require some help. Within an hour, Clara's plan was in motion. Clay arrived with a few trusted club members to stand guard outside. Teresa Garcia drove from the city with documents. Margaret worked with Jax to prepare the evidence from the flash drives. Ellie moved between the adults, watching their coordinated efforts with curious eyes. During a quiet moment, she approached Jax with her drawing. I made this for you, she said, holding up the colorful page. The image showed 5 stick figures holding hands. Ellie in the center, flanked by her parents on one side, and Jax and Clara on the other. Above them all, a silver star shone like a protective beacon. My family, Ellie explained simply. Both parts. Jax knelt to her level, deeply moved. It's beautiful, Ellie. Are we going to see my mom and dad soon? She asked, her voice suddenly smaller. We're working on it, Jax promised. A lot of good people are helping us. As if summoned by his words, a knock came at the door. It was Teresa, holding up a briefcase. I hope you realize what you've started, she said. Your case is making national headlines. Biker saves child from corporate conspiracy is trending. That's not exactly accurate, Jax protested. It's close enough, Teresa replied, with a hint of a smile. And it's buying us public opinion, which we desperately need. She spread documents across the table, emergency guardianship petitions, affidavits from Nurse Sarah and Detective Martinez, and most crucially, a letter from Thomas and Laura Cooper designating Jax as Ellie's temporary guardian. The judge who denied us before? He's suddenly very interested in our case, Teresa explained. Funny how media attention changes legal priorities. As Teresa outlined the strategy, Ellie tugged at Jax's vest. What is it, little bit? He asked. She held out her hand, opening her small pink palm to reveal a delicate object, a tarnished silver locket on a thin chain. Mommy said to give this to you when we were safe, she explained. It has the special numbers inside. Jax carefully opened the locket, finding not a photograph, but a tightly folded paper with what appeared to be formulas and molecular structures. Thomas Cooper's breakthrough treatment protocol for Ellie's condition. This is what MedCorp has been after all along, Margaret whispered. The treatment Thomas developed independently. As the adults gathered around this final piece of evidence, Ellie looked up at Jax with perfect trust. Are we safe now? She asked simply. Jax looked around the room at the unlikely alliance that had formed to protect one child. Family, club brothers, lawyers, nurses. Yes, Ellie, he answered with absolute certainty. We're safe now. The St. Louis Federal Building loomed before them. Jax adjusted his tie, a strange formality after days in leather, and glanced at Ellie beside him, her hand tucked trustingly in his. Ready? He asked gently. Ellie nodded, solemn in a new blue dress Clara had bought her. Will the judge be scary? A little serious, maybe. but not scary. And I'll be right beside you. Teresa led their procession up the courthouse steps. Jax and Ellie in the center, flanked by Clara, Margaret, Martinez, and Clay. News cameras tracked their progress, reporters calling questions that Teresa expertly deflected. Inside, the courtroom hushed as they entered. On one side sat MedCorp's stern-faced representatives. On the other, FBI agents. Judge Harmon, a silver-haired woman with penetrating eyes, studied the group over her reading glasses. "This is a most unusual situation," she began. "Mr. Henderson, you stand before me having violated several laws in your protection of this child." Jax stood respectfully. "Yes, Your Honor." "Yet I also have before me testimony from the FBI validating extraordinary circumstances." MedCorp's lead attorney rose smoothly. "Your Honor, regardless of the allegations against my clients, Mr. Henderson has no legal standing. The child requires professional care." Teresa countered immediately. "We have submitted the notarized designation from Thomas and Laura Cooper explicitly naming Jax Henderson as their preferred guardian." The debate continued, legal arguments flying back and forth while Ellie's grip on Jax's hand tightened. Judge Harmon noticed. "I'd like to speak with the child," she announced. "In my chambers. Mr. Henderson may accompany her." In the judge's private office, Ellie sat nervously on the edge of a large leather chair. Judge Harmon removed her judicial robe. "Ellie," she began kindly, "who do you feel safe with right now?" Without hesitation, Ellie pointed to Jax. "My safe man, the one with the silver star." "And do you understand that your parents are waiting to see you as soon as they can?" "Yes," Ellie said softly. "But they asked Gunnar to protect me until then." "One last question," the judge said. "If you could choose where to stay until your parents come back, where would that be?" Ellie looked up at Jax, then back to the judge. "With someone who understands my medicine, with someone who promised to keep me safe and didn't break that promise, with Gunnar." Judge Harmon's expression softened. "Thank you, Ellie." Back in the courtroom, tension had built during their absence. Judge Harmon took her seat. "In the matter of temporary guardianship for Ellie Cooper," she began, "this court finds sufficient evidence to grant emergency custody to—" The words hung suspended in the air. "Jax Henderson," Judge Harmon declared, her gavel punctuating the decision. "Pending reunion with Ellie's parents." 3 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Jax sat on his Harley outside Methodist Hospital. Inside, Thomas and Laura Cooper embraced their daughter after weeks of careful coordination by federal marshals. The whistleblower case against MedCorp had exposed everything. Jax watched the hospital doors, feeling a bittersweet mix of joy and loss. His temporary guardianship had officially ended. The doors swung open. Ellie emerged holding her parents' hands, her face radiant with happiness. When she spotted Jax, she broke free and ran toward him. "Uncle Jax," she called out. "Look at you," Jax said, hopping off his bike to kneel at her level. "All better now. Mom says you can visit us in our new house," Ellie announced, "and I can call you whenever I want." Thomas and Laura approached, gratitude evident in their eyes. Laura pressed something into Jax's hand. Maya's bracelet, now paired with Ellie's. "Two miracles connected," she said softly. "Your daughter's legacy helped save ours." As they said their goodbyes, Ellie suddenly turned and darted toward the sunlit path, spinning with newfound energy. "Gunnar!" she called joyfully. "Look, I'm running!" Watching her race beneath dappled sunlight, Jax felt a peace he hadn't known since losing Maya. Some wounds never fully heal, but they can transform into bridges to unexpected joy. Ellie ran back and wrapped her arms around his leather-clad waist one last time. "Thank you for being my safe man," she whispered. "Always, little bit, Jax promised, knowing that some bonds transcend circumstances, and that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism happen not in dramatic rescues, but in simple promises kept.